Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I want to share with you guys my actual favorite knife brand according to the number that I own in my collection. This was interesting. Multiple people asked me over the last few months, like, which brand do you own the most of? And I thought about it, and I was like, well, I own this many of this many. And I realized I didn't really have any idea, especially when I started to look at my collection. Now, this is going to be based on the premium brands I own, because if I did all brands, like out of all brands, it would be like Civivi or something, because I get sent so many, but I try to give a lot of those away. So when I'm talking about my core collection and the premium brands, I want to share with you guys actually the top 7 brands that I own the most of. This was really interesting. So I'll try to link these brands down in the description. You guys can check them out if you want. A lot of this stuff is absolutely available. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. So starting off here with number 7, it's going to be ProTech. I own 5 ProTechs. Honestly, if you just walked up and asked me, how many ProTechs do you own? I would have guessed more than 5. Apparently, I just own 5 ProTechs. We have the ProTech Invictus. We have the ProTech Malibu. We have the ProTech Godfather in the cool sapphire blue. We have a ProTech TR3. And we have the ProTech Rockeye. This is a custom with the mirror polished finish on it. Moving on here to number 6. Before we move on to number 6, actually, I went back and looked at my collection one more time and realized there's one other brand that I own 5 of. I thought it was only 4, but I forgot about this guy here. This is Maxace, and they tie with ProTech in my collection for a total of 5. So we have the Maxace Peregrine. We have the Maxace Hephaestus, which is one of my favorite overbuilt flippers ever. That thing is such a monster. We have the Maxace Sandstorm V2, which is far and away the largest integral that I own. This is such a monster. We have the Maxace Titano, which I cannot believe is not the largest folding knife in my collection. Golly. And then we have the Maxace Vortex, which is technically not the largest folding knife I've ever shown on this channel, but technically the longest and one of the thickest folding knives that I own in my collection. So it's actually 8 total brands that I'm showing you guys today, but this is tied with ProTech for the number of knives. So let's go ahead and move on to number 6. So coming in at number 6, and I think I could have guessed this off the top of my head, we have Shirogorov. I own 6 Shirogorov knives. I'm kind of surprised that I don't own more, but kind of not, because they're extremely expensive. So we have the Shirogorov F95-0. We have the Quantum Ursus in Chromax. We have the Soft Overkill, the RJM collab. This is micarta and titanium. Then we have the Quantum Gen 1. We have the F3NS. And then I have a special edition of the F3NS in the Aqua Technocarbo. So certainly not the only Shirogorov knives I'll ever own, but currently these are all the Shirogorovs I own. Moving on here to number 5. So coming in at number 5, I think this is going to be a surprise to a lot of people. It's Hinderer knives. A lot of you guys know that Hinderer is one of my favorite brands ever, but it's nowhere near the top of the list in terms of the total number that I own. I actually only own 7 Hinderers, which I did know, and believe me, my Hinderer collection will definitely expand over time. Truthfully, if we were going to consider the total number of knives that I have bought over any period of time, I've actually owned, remember I buy, sell, and trade sometimes, but I've actually owned over 35 individual Hinderer knives over the span of the last decade. So these are the ones that are currently in my collection. So I just wanted to add a little context there. We have a Gen 6 Harpoon Spanto in S35VN. We have a Gen 6 DLT Trading non-flipper Fullard Spear in M390. That's probably my favorite Hinderer of the bunch. We have actually a Monkey Edge Frag in CPM 3V. I've removed the G10 frag scale and put a matching Battle Black titanium scale on it. We have, I think I think this was an E-Knives exclusive non-flipper Eclipse, and I forget the name of the blade shape. It's the same one they used on the 0392s. We have a full titanium Hinderer Auto, which was not super easy to get a hold of. We have what I have always called the Dark Horse. This is a very rare version of the XM24 in not DLC, not Battle Black, but stonewashed DLC, which is a very rare finish for Hinder Knife. They have not done this in a long time, and I honestly don't know if they'll ever do it again. But what's crazy about this is that it's actually in an XM24 Spanto, which I think they maybe only made 10 of those, but I'm not sure. And then finally, we have a full titanium, my only full titanium XM24 in the Knife Center exclusive Harpoon Spanto blade. So that is actually the extent of my Hinderer collection. Moving on here to number 4. So coming in at number 4 was actually kind of a surprise. I didn't honestly know I owned so many of these, and that's going to be Midgard's Messer. I actually own 9 Midgard's Messer knives. And if you watch my channel a lot, you're probably thinking, I feel like you own more than that. Like, I've definitely seen more than that on your channel. I'm only counting knives that are actually like in my collection. A lot of Midgard's Messer knives that I have received or purchased, I have sold or traded, right? So this is what's left in my collection. We have the Midgard's Messer Thunrar. These are all not going to fit on camera, so sorry about that. We have the full-size Beowulf. What's interesting about this one, this is actually serial number 1. So if you're wondering, I wonder where serial number 1 of the Beowulf is, it's here in my collection. We have the mini Beowulf, which is hardly a mini knife at all. If you're not familiar with Midgard's Messer knives, they're all just like exceedingly thick. We have the mini Viking. This is the Gen 2 or version 2 with the over treble stop. Nothing mini about that knife. We have the Gen 2 full-size Viking, which is more of a gardening tool than anything else. Very cool, though. The original Viking, this was actually purchased secondary. I remember seeing this a long time ago and thinking, how did I miss that on my knife journey? So I had to pick one up, and this is the knife that started all the Midgard's Messer stuff. We have the new Sleipner. A lot of people are like, what's that hole for? Well, you can put your finger in there, but truthfully, it's meant to attach to a belt buckle that is made by the same company. We have the full-size original Berserker, which is huge. And then we have the carbine rifle knife, which has the sort of sliding bolt action lock. This actually fits into the hole there on the blade and locks it out. A few of these actually have secondary stop pin holes, so you can screw in like a stop pin. And that's the case also with the mini Beowulf and the Thunrar. But yeah, so I apparently own 9 Midgard's Messer knives. So moving on here to number 3. Okay, so coming in third place is actually Herman knives. You'll notice that I have 9 here, which is technically a tie with fourth place, the Midgard's Messer knives. But it's also technically going to be a tie with second place. Second place, there are 10 of that knife brand. I do have a 10th Herman knife that is not here yet. So once it arrives, I'll have 10. But I felt like the right thing to do is put Herman in third place. Now, a lot of you might notice that I'm missing one of my full dress Hermans. I recently sold it, so I obviously can't count that one either. So there are 9 here. We have the Micro Sting, which is a user. We have the Sting, which is also a user. And then we have the Dragonfly, and you guessed it, also a user. I like to use some of the more basic ones. We have the Ishtar in the Persian blade profile here, which is really cool, kind of a purpley webbed or leaf milling there. We have a full DLC Dragonfly, which I gotta admit is one of my favorites. This thing is an absolute beast, and this guy is in M398. We have another Ishtar, but this has gold PVD and black Damasteel. What they call this, they actually call this Bifrost Damasteel. That's definitely a unique one. We have a full dress Mantis in what I refer to as a magma zircotai. That's zirconium and Timascus layered together. And then we have a sequence Baalbak polished blade, which is pretty cool. Another one of my favorites, this is the Herman Slim in kind of a peacock style Timascus. It's actually different colors on each side. This side has a lot more green. We have another Ballbach Damast blade. Very cool pattern there, definitely. And then finally, my first full dress Herman. This is a full dress Timascus Dragonfly with a Damacor blade. So definitely some of the more flashy knives. I own multiples of from the same brand. I am a huge fan of Herman knives, and I absolutely expect my Herman knife collection to expand over time. So moving on here to number 2. So coming in at number 2, I don't think this is going to be any surprise. Actually, the only surprise here is that I don't currently own more Spyderco knives. Over time, I think I've owned 20 or 30 different Spyderco knives, but this is the only one that really shocks me. If you'd have asked me, if you'd have walked up to me on the street and said, how many Spyderco knives you own, I would have said 13 or 14, but I only own 10. So it's technically tied with Herman knives. I have a Damascus and titanium Delica. I have the Blade HQ exclusive DLC Smock in CPM M4 and the Jade G10. I have the Spyderco Paysan Integral, which is my favorite Spyderco design. I mean, it's a Peter Rosenti design, but it's probably my favorite Spyderco knife ever. The lock stick, right? Now, a pretty well-known knife maker has offered to fix that for me, so maybe in the future that won't be the case. I have a Spyderco Para 3 in Maximate, probably my most used pocket knife ever. I have a Spyderco PM2. You guys recognize this, of course, alongside the Para 3 from the size comparison knives. I have a Capara that's been shortened by, I think the guy goes by Blade Shops. But yeah, it's a custom shortened Capara, which is actually a pretty great ADC knife. And then I own 4 Shamans. This is my original Shaman, which used to have black G10 scales. I removed them and added the River's Edge Cutlery exclusive OD green scales, which came off a different Shaman that I'm about to show. I have a CTS XHP Spyderco Shaman that's tumbled. And then these have, sorry, you'll have to excuse the fingerprints. It actually looks a lot better when it's all shined up. These are solid zirconium scales, oil slick zirconium scales from Medenboss, who makes this stuff right here in the USA. So that's a fun one. It's just super heavy. And we have, originally this was the River's Edge exclusive Spyderco Shaman in FDE PVD. It's actually a factory-coated FDE Spyderco blade. I don't think Spyderco ever does those for anyone except for River's Edge Cutlery. But that's in CTS 204P or Carpenter's equivalent of 20 CV or M390. And then we have Flytanium, black Flytanium scales. These are titanium that have actually been Cerakoted by River's Edge Cutlery. If you didn't know, they have a custom Cerakote program. Also the Backspacer, which is Flytanium, also Cerakoted. And then I just got a black MXD deep carry clip, which was already black from when I got it. And then far and away the most expensive one of the bunch, this is actually an S90V Shaman with Medenboss Zircotite scales. So these are zirconium Timascus scales. These custom Shamans were built during a time where I didn't have any other like knife customizing projects, and I just really wanted to make a Shaman, and I couldn't decide between, a couple, so I ended up actually doing 3. So that's it for number 2. Now we're going to move on to number 1, and I imagine a lot of you have guessed. Some of you have got it right. I'm sure many people have got it wrong, but this blew my mind. So hang tight. Let's go to number 1. Okay, so coming in at number 1, I actually own 19 Microtech knives, 20 if you count the Marfio & Custom, which I know not everybody will, so that one's just in there. But yeah, wow, I knew I owned a lot of Microtech knives, but I did not know that I was slowly creating this massive shadow over the rest of my collection. I don't know what it is subconsciously that I find so appealing about Microtech knives, but these are all knives that I paid for. There are knives that came out of the last few groups. Every now and then a retailer gives me one or something, but I've legitimately purchased all of my Microtech knives. So apparently, my favorite brand to purchase over and over and over again is Microtech, which that would not be my first answer. I think if I thought about it a little bit, I would say, well, I actually do own a lot of Microtechs. But this is what I ended up with, and I have no plans on slowing down. It's so funny how far ahead my Microtech knife collection is ahead of everything else that I own. So starting off here, now some of these are Wright collabs, but they are official Microtech collaborations. So we have the SOCOM Bravo. We have another SOCOM Bravo that's all in the black coating, and this one's a Tanto. We have the USA-made SOCOM Elite, which this one's actually from 2018. This is aluminum and the M390 drop point blade. And then we have, of course, the Anax Integral. This one's all black. I really, really like this knife. I'm just a huge fan of integrals in general. And we have another Anax here. This is a user Anax that's non-coated. I could never get this one. This is the only Microtech I own where the blade isn't perfectly centered, and I just can't, no matter what I do, I can't get it centered. I have an early Microtech stitch. When I say early, it has the wider ram lock, and it has, sorry, my thumbnail's gross. Sorry about that. It has the curved pocket clip. I bought this from my buddy Lou, and this is a user. I love using this thing, but it's just the smooth G10. And then I have another ram lock stitch. This is a newer one that has the more narrow switch. You can see here the difference between the two switches. They both operate exactly the same. I have no lockup issues with either. I've actually shown that a bunch, done some spine whack tests on camera with each of these. We have the fluted aluminum. This is definitely my favorite manual stitch. And then it has the newer pocket clip that is symmetrical and can be flipped over to the other side for left-handed carry. We have an auto stitch. This is all black, and this is the lesser of the two in terms of which one's my favorite. I love the auto stitch. This thing is super burly and awesome. I just hate that Microtech had to put that giant paragraph on it. My favorite of my auto stitches is my shadow stitch, which has absolutely no branding on it whatsoever. This thing is really nasty, and I am so happy that I picked it up when I did. That thing is just awesome. Now, this one, you might not count it. This is far and away the most expensive knife in my collection. I mean, like, the next closest thing it costs less than half as much as this. But this is a Marfione Borka custom cracked ice black star stitch. It's got so many words in it I can just never remember, but obviously a mirror polished, quad beveled M390 blade, and we have a DLC frag titanium frame, and it also has 6 pieces of blue tritium that have been milled into the titanium. This was a dream knife of mine. I don't think for a second it's worth the money that I paid for it, but as a collector who has just drooled over that knife for years and years and years, I had to pull the trigger at least once. Now moving on to some OTFs, we of course have the Microtech Ultratech. Fantastic knife. We have a Signature Series Combat Troodon. This has the Hellraiser blade shape. We have another Signature Series Combat Troodon that has the is it the Hellhound? Yeah, I think it's the Hellhound blade shape. This was my first Signature Series Combat Troodon that I received. This is the new, I guess the Gen 3 Combat Troodon, which has much easier actuation. I mean, seriously, I can do it with my index finger. This thing is awesome. We have the Dirac Delta in bronze, which I love. I just don't, it's so twangy, right? I think it just needs some more of that sound deadening goop. This is the larger of the bunch. Really, probably the best priced full-size OTF from Microtech. We have the Glykon, which outside of the Hera 2, I think this is probably the best looking OTF that Microtech makes. And it's just having the tri-switch on there so you can retract it with 2 fingers is awesome. And I also just love the look of it, especially with these titanium inlays here or overlays. The blade is also super cool too. It's nice that they incorporated 2 edges and still the ability to use that area for your thumb. Now, this might be my favorite looking Microtech OTF in existence. This is the Microtech Hera 2, which has the really nice solid action. It's very easy to actuate along. I mean, it's the same thing as the Combat Troodon. This one's got double fullers and the M390 MK, that's M390 with a top hat as far as I'm concerned. Just my opinion. But I love the blade. I love the fullers, right? This one didn't do it that time. I've had a few bounce back issues with that one, but that seemed to be okay for that one at least. Then we have definitely the hardest firing OTF in my collection. This is the Scarab 2. I've heard there's a newer version of this. I'm definitely going to get my hands on it. I picked this one up because it's a Shadow Edition, which these can be a little tricky to find. I have never had an issue. None of these other OTFs I've really ever had issues with firing, but this thing, there is no way that thing's ever going to have an issue firing. My God, does this thing fire hard. I would say 20% harder than any of the other Microtechs in my collection. I have the new LUDT, which is a great knife. I'm honestly not sure if I'm going to hang on to this, and somebody's already called it. But I do like this knife. I'm just not sure that I really want to keep it. And then finally, we have possibly the best priced Microtech knife of all time. This is the MSI, and this one also gets used alongside my 2 manual stitches. Huge fan of this knife at around 250 bucks. This is a really nice option from Microtech. So guys, that's it. I hope you found this video entertaining. I honestly can't believe that I have not done this video before, but if you've ever wondered what brands does Metal Complex own the most of, here it is. Like I said, I'll link these right down below in the description. You guys can check them out if you want. That's going to be pretty much it from me today, guys. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.